Well, Paris. I wouldn't say that Paris will be a mess. No. The city horribly has lately been embracing some literally post-Stalinist propaganda, advertising how safe it is. Post-Stalinist propaganda means turning the capital into a national advertising space. All budget money is transferred to the capital at all costs, and it's not showing what the country looks like outside the capital, because it's completely different there. There is poverty, jobless, fleet, everything, because it all goes to the capital. In this case, Paris won. The first option is impossible. The second option is possible, namely the pushy selling of stories like it's great that even the top brass don't believe it, but they pretend to believe it to avoid losing their positions. This is the case of Paris. Paris is definitely a city you must see. And today is definitely won't be enough for this city, but it's Vidocq city. Things haven't really changed, and I mean my entire family has been to Paris. You also see photos of my father from '69 when he was in Paris. He remembered bedbugs and thieves. I remember thieves and con artists. My cousin remembers high-level thieves because she arrived by car but was already returning without it. Her husband was robbed her twice, lost as well very good camera. My aunt eventually fled to Nantes, another family member to Montpellier. We all have the same associations with Paris. Dirty and breeding ground for all kinds of crime. The theft is common as the metro. It's worth going to Paris for Versailles or maybe for Fontainebleau and nothing more. Paris is disappointing. My Scottish friend always talk about the French, but they will be writhing in pain from intestinal torsion, dying in convulsion, and still everything will be très bien. I was stationed in Köln and traveled to Paris frequently. And I agree with that. We cut off the impressions of Versailles and throw out Paris. For me, the national treasures there are now Christian Clavier and Corinne Massiere. That woman is divine, even when she steps on the stage like a total ugly witch. She has a lot of charm. Now we have immigrants sleeping on the streets as well. Paris is symbol of Gothic architecture. Was passionate about art, history, come here for what? Because it has the most Gothic monuments. It's a French architectural style anywhere, and what? You could get hit in the head with a brick. It's scary to walk near these buildings. You can smell the mold from the entrance. What happened at Notre Dame could happen in all these buildings. They don't care. You can't blame it on the Arabs who live there for not knowing about it, because the Jeffs and so as well the French are still in power, so the authorities should care. They has that knowledge, are there since the beginning, and the Arabs, at least the ones I met from the former colonies, really don't care where they live. Social services are great and it's enough. You can be 10 years in Paris and never in Versailles, for example, because you don't need that for that. Famous Russian Bridge is pleasant association, at least for me, associated with the last Romanovs, Alexander III Bridge. My great-great-grandfather served as a guard with Tsar Nicholas. The Tatars and Ukrainians were mostly white. That's why they had the Holodomor. But the word white doesn't just refer to the nobility, as French like to speak, but to all those who disagreed with Bolshevism and later Sovietism. And in the palace, there were even cleaning ladies as well. Yes, the Tsar was a very kind man and was on first name terms with everyone. Paradoxically, that harmed him, because later it was used for him, but it was possible to get along with him. No one wanted to talk because cousin Wilhelm was so jealous, so that he decided to send a certain Jew, now known as Lenin. Both paid for their sins. One got Hitler, the other Jugashvili. The name Vlad isn't the same as the Vladimir. You hear it quite often, even in movies. It might be a diminutive. And if you say something like that in the Czech Republic or Romania, you will get beaten. It's a separate name here. We have revolt, but as well can be diminutive, but mostly you will hear Vova in Russian language or Ukrainian. It's the creation of West. We have revolt in Notre Dame, which all my friends who were there say it lost something. I think so too, looking at the photos and movies. Indeed, you just have to stand under it, and it's enough now. The most difficult part is getting to the legendary Chapel because it's next to the ministry, but it's worth to see it. Saint-Germain-des-Prés, where the Polish king and one of the last members of the Swedish royal family Vazar buried, is falling apart. Saint-Etienne, where Colbert was buried, is falling apart, and we owe him a lot. Richelieu was also baptized there. There is a touch of Renaissance in the interior, but as well in bad condition. Fresque. Travel agencies are afraid to take you to the royal necropolis because of theft. Saint Denis. It's worth seeing. This was the most important church in France, not as some people claim Notre Dame. It was just parish church. Saint Denis was the site of coronations. Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI were also buried here after Napoleon indicated where the revolutionaries ordered their bodies to be buried. What's pragmatic? Napoleon needed a continuation of the power. Contrary to appearances, nothing was built on the revolution. In his era, it was better to build nothing on that revolution. The Prague defenestration brought more to people than that revolution itself. The English Revolution brought us more if we are talking about this continent. Napoleon himself is buried with his brothers in Les Invalides. And yes, it did bring the guillotine, which was until 1977, but officially 1981, the longest time on the continent. The last executioner died quite recently. I can already hear them screaming about how modern they are, but they are not even use it so much time. Every system needs a continuation sooner or later. The longest cathedral in Beauvais, or how it should be pronounced, is an interesting one. However, it's been collapsing from the beginning due to design mistake. It's believed to have been built by the same architect as Gloucester because there is the same problem. It's supported by special columns. You can't blame the Vikings either for what's going there. The Pantheon with cool toy that few people know about, called pendulum. Everyone should know what the pendulum indicates. It used to be a St. Ginevra church. She met Attila there. We were better than time. Well, but few people visit Napoleon's third apartment. You had the Adams there. A postcard with memories. Where are 90% of most people like that? How can you hold a letter for weeks at a place like this, knowing what you have? Let's blame it on syphilis. Okay, after all, it's a French disease. It really can damage mind, but okay, let's left with out comments. Sacré-Cœur looks great from the outside, but that period in art, it's a bit like Sagrada Familia. There will be a fans, but it's a kitsch. We also have rather mysterious place where we'll encounter Masons, various orders founded on the doctrine of Templars. They are doing just fine because only the Templars have disappeared from the history, the site of Jacques de Molay burning. So let's move to one thing that will make us feel even a little like we are in the capital, Versailles. From the moment we leave the station, a different impression emerges. Magnificent gardens, gilded fountains, and the palace. Versailles Chambre Pétard. We could content them with a triangle, and world-class events, history took place here. World decisions were made here. Versailles is the most crowded of them all. But anyone who considers themselves educated and sophisticated must see it. Roszczyńska centrally didn't say anything about the bread rolls. Let's collect the silliest and most popular online encyclopedia. Roszczyńska knew perfectly well what poverty meant when she fled Poland. Marie Antoinette told them to eat bread rolls because there was nothing else to eat, and ordered to take bread rolls out of the palace kitchen and give it to poor people. What was the context? Whatever this woman did would have been wrong, although not everything was wrong. To this day, that context is much discussed, removed. No one speak about that context mostly. The Assad was an investigator, and he was against the destruction of monuments, including churches. He emphasized that these were historical monuments and they created the continuity of the nation. The Assad really had good political insight. 120 Days of Saddam was intended to ridicule the behavior of the court, which is why it was so hated. This book is so funny, but because at some point you realize there are too many arms and legs. The interiors of Versailles are shocking and perfectly express absolutism, like El Jesu. Recently there was a nearly 3-hour program online about Versailles, brilliantly done. Excellent, like all of these man programs, in fact. Taking photos in France is pointless because they have such legal restrictions on using photos that you won't live long enough to use them. The EU generally plays around with such paperwork even in zoos, but France has it at the top. You can send them photos to photo agencies because they pay the best. I have sending photos to one since a few weeks, but not a France photos itself. It is not worth considering this investment. Apparently, it's the city of love. No, it's not romantic unless someone confuses sex with love. There is a lot of that there. There is a story about that in my family, a romantic travel to Paris. My mother always wanted to go to Paris with my father for their wedding anniversary. My father avoided for the years. They could even, at the day of anniversary, invited friends for the hunting. They didn't have the room. Everything for not going to Paris. After it was the 25th wedding anniversary, they divorced and got back together, but officially it was the 20th anniversary. My mother declared war on Paris. My father was more likely to pester someone through many months then get angry, but when he got angry, he invited me on an announcement. This year we are going twice as far. I don't care what for. You are going to Paris with your mother, and I don't want to hear any more about this fucking city. If necessary, even take a machete to defend yourself and her, and guard her. And actually, as thought I guard as well, she was robbed. And for our wedding anniversary, we are going to Vienna. I really want to feel like I'm in a fairy tale and not have to look all the time at my pockets. My husband, on the other hand, had the saying, the Eiffel Tower is great when you are at the top of this mess and realize how much of an eyesore it's to the city. I have also mixed feelings about it. I will dedicate it to someone, especially since we will never go back there. When father is and then in documents he loses rights to his children, so wherever he goes he's cut off. Whether it's Paris or Novosibirsk or Tokyo or New York. It's fashionably called ghosting now. You couldn't do a better ghosting by it. There were some nice stray cats in Versailles, especially ginger one. The animals have even worse life than homeless people, because few people stand and care for them, for homeless people, sometimes. This goes to all the stray cats and dogs, and as well the homeless people who care for the animals whose we found thrown in the trash. And there were plenty of them there, so let's dedicate it to them. Maybe something would change. Yeah, the shelters in France mean as well medical tests on animals. That as well should change. But if gelatin was used. And we thank as well the thieves for helping us discover more of the world and choose other destinations.